In this short video, we're going to look at sales channels. Specifically, we're going to deal with the selection of sales channels and look at some of the issues involved when selecting a sales channel. The following needs to be taken into consideration in this activity. Selecting the appropriate sales channel is clearly important because that's where the success or failure of the product could be determined. So these are some of the considerations that need to be taken into account. First of all, the market. The channel must ensure that all customers have access to purchase the product. So all the potential customers of the product should be identified. The types of customers should be identified, and the channel most suitable that will meet the requirements of those consumers should be selected. Now, the channel could be retailing, direct sales. It can be in various formats, but the important point is that the characteristics of the consumers are identified and that the channel meets those requirements. So the channel must be appropriate for the product on offer. It depends, of course, on not just the customer preferences, but also on the product itself. It's the case that if it's an expensive product, then more exclusive channels will be used. Whereas if it's a product for mass appeal, something that we buy every day and would cost very little, perhaps wider channels could be used. So it depends on the nature of the product, and it also depends on the capacity of the channel to meet the customer requirements. So an expensive watch will go through an expensive jewelry shop, and there may be fewer of those around. A cheaper item, an item of everyday consumption, that might go through general shops in the area and general outlets and be available in a widespread sense of the word. So it depends on the nature of the product, and it depends on how the customers see it. The channel costs must be borne in mind as well. Channels are not free. They have to be paid for. There's direct channel costs. This could be measured in terms of storage, how much it costs to store the product. And also, it depends on the product, but it might be that more salespeople are required. It might be a big item, it might be a very popular item, so more salespeople are required. Again, additional channel costs. There will be greater market coverage, of course, as a consequence, and the calculus or the calculation has to be in terms of the additional revenue received from sales versus the cost of having more salespeople and extra storage and so on. But as far as the producer is concerned, of course, there are also channel costs because the channels themselves need to be compensated and they should be enabled in terms of profitability. They should be able to make a profit, and that's important. That's why they will hold the product in the first place. So they should get a certain percentage return on the product, perhaps a markup of a certain percentage. Now, selecting the sales channel, well, the following need to be taken into consideration when selecting sales channels. First of all, the product, as I said earlier. Depending on the product, low price or complex products, different channels of distribution must be considered. Complex products might require after-sales support, which means the sales channel will have to have that facility, will have to make that facility available to the purchaser. And in which case it requires small channels of distribution, in other words, a small number of channels of distribution. Where it's a complex product that might require after-sales service and instructions on the telephone or whatever, generally speaking, these are complex products and there will be few channels. So if we're buying a computer, we might go to a high street store that specializes in computer sales. When we buy the product, we might get access to a support line, which might be supplied by the producer, the product producer, the original producer, or it might be supplied by the store itself. It depends. But certainly the number of channels will be determined by the complexity of the product. And also the product life cycle. Channels are selected depending on the stage the product is in the product life cycle. New products will need more intensive distribution to launch into the market, whereas established products have different distribution methods. So it depends. If it's a new product coming in, it'll need much more support and more intensive marketing and more care and attention. An established product almost sells itself. So they could have wider channels of distribution for an established product. A product which is nearing the end of its cycle, that might need a lot of support as well, or it might need to be managed out of the market and perhaps be used to introduce its replacement, a new product to replace it. So there are issues in the selection of sales channels, and as I said, this has been a very, very short video to just mention some of the sales channels considerations when selecting the sales channel. What are the considerations? And the main ones we've just highlighted in this session. And that's all I'm going to do in this very brief video, so thank you for watching.